Every business pivot feels like a betrayal, and if you're not careful, it absolutely will be. We've watched companies torch years of loyalty in a single rebranding announcement, and we're gonna make sure that never happens to you. The brutal truth is that most pivots fail not because the new idea was wrong, but because the execution ignored the people who already believed in you. Your existing customers are not obstacles to your evolution. They are the bridge that gets you there alive. Think of your customer base like a garden you've spent years cultivating. And a pivot is essentially you announcing you want to grow something different in the same soil. If you rip everything out overnight, you don't get a new garden. You get a crater and a lot of confused, angry plants looking for somewhere else to grow. The psychology here is fascinating and a little painful. Humans hate feeling like they were a phase. When a brand pivots without explanation, customers don't feel upgraded, they feel used. And that emotional residue turns into the loudest one-star reviews you've ever read in your life. So what does a clean pivot actually look like in the real world? It looks like Slack, which started as a gaming company called Tiny Speck. And instead of ghosting their community, they brought the story along, turning internal tools into a product their existing audience actually helped shape. Here's the step-by-step survival guide nobody prints on a motivational poster. First, you audit your core audience before you touch anything else. Identify who among your customers would follow you into a new direction and who is strictly loyal to the old one, because those are two very different conversations. Next, you communicate early and often, and you make it feel like an invitation rather than a press release. The brands that survive pivots treat their customers like co-conspirators, not an audience being informed of a decision already made in a boardroom. One of the biggest misconceptions is that transparency will spook customers into leaving. In reality, silence is what spooks them. When people can't find an explanation, they invent one, and the story they tell themselves is almost always worse than whatever you were actually planning. Now let's talk about the stagger you do not flip the switch all at once. You migrate in phases and let the data breathe. Run the old offering and the new offering in parallel long enough to see which customers naturally migrate, which ones need a nudge, and which ones were never gonna follow you no matter what you did. History is brutally consistent on this point. Companies that pivot in waves survive at a dramatically higher rate than those that go cold turkey. Blockbuster had multiple off-ramps to pivot towards streaming, and they didn't just miss the window, they actually laughed at the window before boarding it up. The irony in most failed pivots is that the business was actually right about the new direction. They just executed the transition, like someone rearranging furniture while the guests were still sitting in the chairs. Timing and sequencing are not soft skills. They are the entire game. Practically speaking, protect your brand equity by anchoring the new identity to something your customers already trust and associate with you. Even Apple, when it dropped computer from its name back in 2007, didn't pretend it had never made computers. It used that credibility as the launching pad for everything that came next. The philosophical truth underneath all of this is that a pivot is not a betrayal of your mission. It's often the purest expression of it if you communicate that clearly. Your best customers will feel proud to have been part of the journey. Discipline in messaging, consistency in values, and patience with the migration timeline will always outperform the dramatic overnight rebrand that trends for 48 hours and then haunts your reviews for 4 years. And honestly, even if you lose a slice of the old base in the process, that's not always failure. Sometimes it's pruning. And pruning is what makes the next season of growth actually possible. The goal is never to keep everyone, it's to keep the right ones and earn the new ones with the same integrity that built your reputation in the first place. Whether you're pivoting your business, repositioning your brand, or starting from scratch entirely, check out our links in the description below. We can help you get started in real estate investing, home contracting work, and connecting with the right lenders to fund your next move.